So we've now arrived at basically the battlefield site of Verdun on a bit of a cycle circuit. This is all forest around us now, which was all planted after the war, but this was the main battlefield site. And to put Verdun into a bit of context, in 1871 treaty that brought an end to the Franco-Prussian War, the French ceded Alsace and Lorraine to the Germans, so Verdun was effectively a frontier town, and it was massively fortified with the main citadel and with an arc of surrounding forts. By early 1916, Joffre, the French boss, was of the view that the main German push was to the north, which indeed it had been, and so Verdun was really very unfortified in terms of manpower, and it was just local volunteers. Falkenhayn had also come to a different conclusion, that he really wasn't getting anywhere with the trenches up north, so he would go to a soft area down and further south, and he'd also decided that he would try and draw the French in to defend Verdun, because it was a very important site psychologically for the French. So he attacks in February 1916 with a very large force, with very heavy artillery, and the small force led by Colonel Durand was overwhelmed, and Durand was killed. Joffre then decided better put a bit of heavy firepower down south, and so he identified Pétain to go and defend Verdun. When Pétain was approached in Paris about this, he said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not coming this evening because I'm having a bit of an evening with my mistress," so they didn't actually set off the following day, which is a bit Francis Drake-ish, but there we go. Anyway, so Pétain, they put in massive reinforcements back into Verdun. Fort Douaumont, which we're going to come to a bit later on, was overwhelmed fairly soon by the Germans, but the French managed to hold the German forces back. And we will carry on the story as we go. We've now reached the site of the so-called Bayonet Trench Memorial. A bit of a story to all this. The original story was that there was a trench here with some French soldiers in, and they were all standing in their trench with their bayonets fixed, and a nearby explosion buried them all, in theory buried them alive and with their bayonets sticking up. And this was the standard folklore, and a rich American was so impressed by it he paid for this fantastic monument. Unfortunately, later excavations demonstrated that the soldiers were actually laid out horizontally, and the likelihood is that they were indeed buried by the shell explosion, but that the Germans laid them there, and the bayonets were used as markers of their graves. But anyway, it's still a very impressive sight and a good story. And this is the line of the trench here. I'll probably get a better view at the other end. And here the crosses says a soldat français inconnu, French unknown French soldier. So now at the top of the tower of the National Necropolis at Douaumont. And Verdun is the heart of the Verdun battlefield, and we're looking down here on the main cemetery. This contains bodies of more than 16,000 French soldiers. The ossuary itself contains the bone remains of more than 160,000 unknown French and German soldiers. This is the monument itself, absolutely vast, and I think a very fitting tribute to what was a vast battle. Out behind the German commander, name is Operation Gericht, which is place of execution, and his theory was that basically the only way you get the French to surrender is to kill as many as possible. Total casualties for the 10-month battle between the middle of February 1916 through until December was over 500,000 on the French side and about 420 on the German side, and there were obviously lots of others from the Commonwealth. And lower down the slope, you just see this massive size, and just fields and fields of crosses. Now reached Fort Douaumont. It was a massive fortress that was basically the focus of the early fighting. And before we come into it, it was overrun fairly rapidly by the Germans in February 1916, and the French spent the entire summer trying to get it back again. Eventually, finally, in October 1916, they managed to retake it and retain it for the rest of the war. There's the barrack building Fort Douaumont. This would have held apparently 44 soldiers. And if we come through here, this was an exit out onto the balcony. You can just see, get the light out of the way, a small railway and supply truck to go out. And this is latrines here, very comfortable, and a pissoir there. So this is the war mechanism for the main gun turret. It said it would take 2 minutes to basically elevate this up, and then we'll go up to the top, and the one shell weighed 43 kilos at a firing range of just under 5 miles. And this is a diagram of how it worked. Here you can see inside the tunnels where the water is gradually leached and bringing. Here we've got some early stalactites forming. And this is the washroom, and you can see here stalagmites forming. Not a hint of daylight unless you go out on patrol, in which case you stand a pretty good chance of not coming back again. So this is a shrine memorial to 679 German soldiers who were killed in the fort from an accidental explosion in one of the munitions rooms. And this is a good plan of the whole fort, and you can see that was the main turret in the middle, and then all the rooms coming off the central part there, and then battlements all around the outside. And this relief map is quite a good indicator of its strategic importance to Douaumont, which was here. And if you look down at the valley, and there is Verdun on the Meuse River just in here, so this whole ridge was absolutely vital. And now outside the fort, and this is the main gun turret at the top here with secondary machine gun posts here. But that was a serious gun here, you can see in this elevated position protected by the steel cap. But again, and these are the battlements around the outside, can see all the way around there. Down, again, what a strategically important site it was. And just to think that we've been walking through all those rooms underneath, and look at all these shell holes on the top, the pounding it must have had. But it must have been like inside when those shells were landing. And then the outer perimeter is basically a giant ditch all the way around. And you get a better view here of these various turrets all the way around, protecting the central part of the fort. And then it's a lower level. These have all been basically gun ports all the way around. So it was a really fearsome structure. So we're now on the site of the destroyed villages of Fleury and Douaumont. They were woken on the morning of the 21st of February 1914 to the sound of shell fire, which the Germans launched. That was a surprise attack with 2 million shells over the course of 10 hours. The villages were evacuated down and beyond Verdun, and it basically just then became a scene of fighting. By August, the village was as good as effectively destroyed, but it remained on the front line, and you can see here all the trenches in here. It was changed hands no less than 16 times during the summer months, finally retaken by the French in August 1914, and they used that as a main launch pad for the capture of Fort Douaumont. But this is all that there is left. Here we are on the way back down to Verdun town. It's a memorial to André Maginot of Maginot Line fame, who fought here and was wounded during the earlier part of the war. He rose to the rank of sergeant and then became an MP, and he was responsible for creating the line of fortifications that became known as the Maginot Line. He died of typhoid fever in 1932. Now back down in main Verdun. Sorry, a bit of traffic noise, but just entering the main citadel, which was constructed in the late 1800s as part of the defences, as Verdun was always considered to be an absolute key point as the main route towards invasion towards Paris. It's like Moselle and Meuse rivers, and protected, was a vital protection. And I'm now about to go in the underground tour of the citadel, and we'll see what that's like. I've just been on a tour through the citadel tunnels, and it's a little train, and you wear VR headset, and basically it was a story of 4 soldiers on R&R in September 1914 and what it was like in the tunnels. But the most interesting bit was the only other person on the train was German, and we started talking afterwards, and his grandfather was Jewish and was killed at Verdun, and his brother was killed at Auschwitz by his own countrymen. What a strange world.